Hey, howdy. How's it going? Good to see you.
Whenever you are ready to go.
I go like this. So easy. Hi, Mel.
My name is Paul Freeman, and I'm a staff member at the FERC based in Washington, D.C., and I'm part of the environmental project team working on the domestic gas and that project. Let me introduce the other team members who are here tonight. Next to me is Olivia DeSanto. In the back is Oliver Pratt and Lee Kinklager and Jennifer Ferris. And they're all employees of a company called Cardo. Cardo is the FERC's environmental contractor for this particular project. Let the record show that this meeting began promptly at about 7:01 p.m. on Thursday, July 16, 2015 in the Oneonta, New York. You may have noticed that to my right, your left, is a court reporter who is transcribing this meeting. This is so we can have an accurate record of tonight's comments. Eventually, an electronic copy of the transcript of this meeting will be placed into the FERC's e-library system, which contains the public record for this proceeding. The FERC has a transcription contract. The FERC has a transcription contract with ACE Federal Reporters. If you wish to obtain a copy of the transcript prior to its placement in our public files, you must make arrangements directly with ACE. So you can talk to Larry here after the meeting if you want a copy of the transcript prior to it being placed in the e-library. The FERC is the lead federal agency for both the authorization of this project under the Natural Gas Act and for compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Under the NEPA, the FERC team will produce an environmental impact statement, or EIS, for this project. The FERC was originally created in 1920 by U.S. Congress and were first known as the Federal Power Commission until Jimmy Carter came in and became president, and we were reorganized and renamed. One of the industries we regulate is the interstate transportation of natural gas. FERC also regulates non-federal hydropower, electric rates for interstate transportation, and oil rates for interstate transportation, but we do not get involved with the siting of either power lines or oil pipelines, so no, FERC is not involved in that thing called the Keystone XL. Also, the FERC does not regulate the exploration, production, or gathering of natural gas, or the local distribution of natural gas. Those activities are regulated by the states. Therefore, comments about hydraulic fracturing or fracking, which is a method of exploration and production, would be out of scope for our EIS because the FERC does not regulate that activity. Our agency is directed by 5 commissioners. They are the decision makers. They're appointed by the President of the United States and approved by Congress. The FERC staff, like me, are civil servants. We, the FERC staff, do not make decisions. The commissioners do that. But FERC staff does make recommendations to the commissioners. You will find our recommendations for environmental issues at the back section of the EIS we produced for this project. So our recommendations are not a secret, they're public. On June 30th, 2015, the FERC issued a notice of intent to produce an EIS for this project. The NOI announced the public scoping meetings that we're having right now, and it also explained how to file written comments with the Commission. The FERC prefers electronic filing of comments using our e-comment feature. You have to go to our website on the internet at www.ferc.gov, click on Documents and Filings, and it'll tell you how to file electronic comments. Or you can send in comments the old-fashioned way with a letter mailed to the Secretary of the Commission at 888 First Street Northeast, Washington, D.C., 20426. In all cases, put the docket number PF 1422 on your correspondence, and we treat electronic filings the same way we treat written letters. There's no differentiation about weighting them. Tonight, I'd like to accomplish the following things. I'd like to summarize the project very, very briefly, explain the role of the FERC in the review of the project, outline how the public may participate in the process, and allow you, the public, an opportunity to voice your concerns about the project at this forum. I ask that you reserve all questions until after my presentation. There's a table in the back of the auditorium, when you passed as you came in, manned by Cardinal, where you can still sign up to be a speaker tonight if you have not already done so. Let me emphasize that this is not a hearing on the merits of the proposal. No decisions would be based on the concerns we hear tonight. These concerns are meant for our environmental review. As I said earlier, this meeting provides you an opportunity to comment on the types of environmental issues that you would like to see covered in our EIS. The more specific your comments are about potential environmental impacts, the more useful it will be for FERC staff to focus our attention on issues that are important to the public. Statements for or against the project are not particularly useful and will not influence the analysis in our EIS. Here are some ground rules about decorum during tonight's meetings. First and foremost, treat all speakers with respect, whether you agree with them or not. Please, no booing, no cheering, no applauding, and no yelling out. If the audience becomes unruly, and I'm certain that will not be the case tonight, and there is a public safety issue, I reserve the right to close the meeting. We will take speakers up until all speakers have had the opportunity to speak, or until the contract for this venue has a closing time, which tonight would be 11 p.m. Those not called who have signed up can still place their comments into the public record by filing a letter with the Commission. Each speaker will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. We have a little stoplight here. It'll be green for 2.5 minutes, blinking yellow for 30 seconds, and then red at 3 minutes. And at that time, I'd like you to give up the microphone and allow the next speaker to have the floor. All comments will be considered. The FERC gives written comments the same weight as verbal comments. I'd like to clarify that the FERC did not conceive of this project, nor are we promoting it. The project was designed by Tennessee Gas Pipeline, a subsidiary of Kinder Morgan. We call them the company or the applicant. The company came up with the location for their facilities, and it is up to the FERC staff to analyze the environmental impacts associated with the construction and operation of those facilities. The FERC is not an advocate for this project. FERC staffs are advocates for the environmental review process. Here's some background about the project. On October 2nd, 2014, the FERC accepted Tennessee Gas's request to initiate our pre-filing environmental review process for the NED project. During pre-filing, the company is supposed to communicate with stakeholders to identify issues of concern, attempt to resolve those issues, and perfect its formal application. No application has been filed at this time, but Tennessee Gas has indicated that they would like to file their application in October. The purpose of the NED project is to provide about 1.3 billion cubic feet per day to markets in the Northeast. The proposed facilities would consist of the following: about 412 miles of pipeline across portions of Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. 9 associated laterals or loops totaling about 60 additional miles. And then 9 new compressor stations, 14 new meter stations, and 1 modified existing compressor station. Today, Tennessee Gas released a news release that stated that the mainline pipe between Wright and Draycut would be reduced to 30 inches in diameter, and that horsepower were reduced at several of the compressor stations. Detail of the revised project will be filed with the FERC by Tennessee Gas in a new resource report 1, which will be filed in the near future by Tennessee Gas. During pre-filing, Tennessee Gas will file their draft resource reports as outlined in our regulations at Title 18, Code of Federal Regulations 380. FERC will, of course, review those resource reports and issue data requests for data gaps that we find. In addition, since those resource reports are on the public record, any member of the public may file comments on them. Right now, we're in the scoping period. The formal comment period will end on August 31st, 2015. However, we will continue to consider comments filed up until the time that FERC staff writes the EIS. Based on comments received to date and our review of the draft resource reports, we have identified several environmental issues that we think the public is concerned about. This is not a complete list, it's just a brief summary from what we've gathered from looking at public comments. We think the public is concerned about impacts on land use, including rural characteristics and conservation lands. We think the public is concerned about impacts on towns and residential areas. We think the public is concerned about impacts on groundwater, including aquifers and wells. And we think the public is concerned about air quality and noise from compressor stations. Other opportunities exist for the public to comment even after Tennessee Gas files its formal application with the FERC. These post-application opportunities for comments include 1, in response to our notice of application, and 2, in response to the issuance of our draft EIS. After the FERC issues its notice of application, parties who want to may request to be interveners in this proceeding. Being an intervener is a legal position. Interveners can request rehearing of a commission decision. They also have the burden of serving all the parties on the service list. You do not have to be an intervener to have your environmental comments considered. Also, you cannot intervene during the pre-filing period. You must wait until after Tennessee Gas files its formal application with the FERC. After the application is filed, the FERC staff will identify data gaps and write environmental information requests. Once the FERC staff is convinced that the application is complete, so that we fully understand the potential impacts the project may have on the environment, we will issue a notice of schedule for our EIS. Based on the application and our own research, the FERC staff will produce a draft EIS in accordance with the regulations of the Council of Environmental Quality, or CEQ, entitled 40, Code of Federal Regulations, Parts 1500 through 1508, to satisfy the requirements of the NEPA. That document will offer our independent analysis of the potential environmental impacts of the proposal and alternatives. Generally, the EIS will discuss the current environment, identify potential project-related impacts on specific resources, and present proposed measures to avoid, reduce, or mitigate adverse effects. The FERC will address such resource topics as geology and soils, water and wetlands, vegetation and wildlife, cultural resources, socioeconomics, land use, air quality, noise, and safety. It will also evaluate reasonable and feasible alternatives. First, the FERC staff will produce a draft EIS that would be circulated for public comment. Copies of the DEIS would be sent to our environmental mailing list, which includes elected officials, government agencies, environmental groups, and non-governmental organizations, Indian tribes, and local libraries and newspapers. We address comments on the draft in a final EIS. The EIS is not a decision document. The Commission will consider the environmental impacts disclosed in the EIS together with other non-environmental issues such as markets and rates. The Commission developed a certificate policy statement that established criteria for determining whether or not there was a need for a project. The Commission decision would be issued as a project order. If the Commission decides to authorize this project, they will give Tennessee Gas Pipeline a certificate of public convenience and necessity. If the Commission decides to authorize the project, the FERC staff will continue to make certain that the environmental conditions appended to the order are satisfied. Those conditions usually include a stipulation that the company obtain all other necessary federal permits and authorizations prior to construction, such as a water quality certificate from the states, or endangered species sign-off by Fish and Wildlife Service. The company must implement all of their measures they committed to in their application and mitigation programs. FERC staff and our contractor will monitor the project through construction, restoration, and the completion of mitigation programs. We will perform on-site inspections for compliance with the environmental conditions of the order. That's the end of my presentation about the FERC process. Now is the time for public comments. I will call up speakers individually in the order in which they signed up by number. At this time, I'd like numbers 1 through 10 to come to the front 2 rows on my left, your right, marked reserved. We'll be able to expedite speakers by having them come to the front and being ready to get to the microphone. To move the meeting along in an expeditious manner, I will call up several numbers, and those speakers should come up to the front row like we've just done. When you come up to speak clearly into the microphone, state your name, and spell it for the court reporter. If you represent an organization, tell us what the name of that organization is without using an acronym. If you are a landowner along the pipeline route, you can tell us where your property is located according to mile marks or cross streets.